writers, you're listening to the Kobo Writing Life podcast, where we bring you insights and inspiration for growing your self-publishing business, coming to you from Kobo's headquarters in Toronto.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Kobo Writing Life podcast. I'm Stephanie, and today I'm joined by Laura.
Hi everyone.
You may remember Laura from our Serena Bowen episode that was published earlier this year. But in this episode, we sit down with Shayla Black, who is currently celebrating 20 years in publishing this year, and she gave us all the information of what publishing was like 20 years ago.
She also talks to us about Wine Wednesday, what it's like working with her husband, and opens up a new world for us by explaining video games.
Which I'm still intrigued by.
Me too.
So without further ado, here is the interview. Thank you, Shayla, for joining us on the Kobo Writing Life podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So for anyone who doesn't know, Shayla Black is the New York Times and US Today bestselling author of more than 60 novels. So for nearly 20 years, she's written contemporary, erotic, paranormal, and historical romances via traditional, independent, foreign, and audio publishers. Her books have sold millions of copies and have been published in a dozen languages. So for anyone unfamiliar with you, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
I'm crazy. Does that count? No. Yeah, I started writing actually really young. I would think I was in college when I was, trying to decide what to do with my life. And I started reading romances, really. I didn't come from a reading family. So weirdly, I went in to buy a used textbook that nobody could find. And they sent me down the road to this little new and used shop, and she had a romance section. And I remember being young, and one of my after-school sitters was reading Shanna by Kathleen Woodiwiss. I was about 10 or something. And of course, I wasn't allowed to read it. She was like, no, this is not a book for you. So when I saw it sitting there, I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm 18. I'm buying this book. So I bought it and I picked it up and I devoured it. And then another one and another one and another one. And about midway through college, I was like, well, hell, somebody does this for a living. Why not me? Which is a very, silly thing to think, I think, when you're super young and optimistic and you know nothing about publishing. But I just kept thinking, seriously, someone does this. Why not me? I can work hard. I have gumption. I'm not a stupid girl. So, okay, we're going to give this a whirl. And my whole family thought I was incredibly crazy, but I knew what I wanted. And so, yeah, I just started driving forward from there. And I originally sold my first book to Kensington in 1998. I was writing historicals. It really was my first love. I grew up reading them, so I wanted to write them. And my mother was a history major, so I knew way more about British and American history probably than your average kid. And I love history. To this day, I love history. But I found out after 9 historicals that I really wanted to write contemporaries, and that was where my voice was leading me. I kept wanting to put contemporary elements in my historicals. My editor at the time was like, no. Yeah, and she was like, and they're like way, way, way too sexy for what they were publishing back then. So I kind of was at that point, started reading a lot of contemporaries and realized, oh, hey, I can be way sexier over here. And it just sort of lent itself to my natural voice. And I can remember I took some time off to have my daughter. And as I was kind of recovering from that pregnancy, and she was a very sickly baby, and I was still working full time. And I started kind of a pet project, for me and my agent at the time. And I hadn't written in a while and I hadn't talked to her in a while. And so she finally started saying to me, what are you working on? I'm like, nothing. She's like, what are you working on? Because I know you. I'm like, oh, it's nothing. And she's like, give me the nothing. So anyway, long story short, the nothing ended up being the first book that I sold to Berkeley. And that was in 2004, which was Bound and Determined. And I've had a healthy relationship with Berkeley ever since. And so we did the Sexy Caper series together. And then starting in 2007, we did the Wicked Lover series together. And I've gone from erotic to straight contemporary. I've done paranormal. I kind of like to write all over the place. And I really enjoy having the creative freedom to just do what feels good.
I feel like everyone discovers romance in university/college.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what I found.
Yeah.
I talked to a lot of people who started, rummaging through their mom's books earlier in life, or it seems like, yeah, they go to some sort of college university situation and then find books. I've talked to a few people who are like, I was in my 30s and some neighbor passed me a book and I went, oh my gosh.
There's a new world out there.
Yeah, you kind of read your first one and you're like, this is great.
Yeah.
Give me more.
When I find women who say, oh, I don't read romance, and I always want to go, but have you actually read one? I'm super curious.
I literally push them at everyone and I'm like, but have you read one? I'm not sure if you have.
Yeah, Steph just got me into historical romance recently, actually. But yeah.
Always a good time.
Yes.
I think so. So this year you celebrated 20 years in publishing. Congratulations.
Thank you. I feel like, like last man standing in a weird way. I'm not the last one, but there was a group of us who started all together in 1998. Lara Adrian, Carrie Brisbane, Julie Kenner. There was just a whole, group of us back then. And we had a Yahoo group, like I'm really going to date myself. We had a Yahoo group. There were so many of us. There was like 250, almost 300 people who sold their first book in that kind of time frame between, I want to say, early 98 and late 99. And I think of those 250 to 300 people, there's only about 7 of us left.
Wow. And
it's a lot.
They just stopped writing, or?
I think it's a combination of things. Some people did stop writing. I think some people found out that they had like 1 or 2 stories they were desperate to tell. Mm-hmm. And I think especially back then, one of the more challenging things about the business was you would have all this time to prepare your book. I mean, you could spend years and years and years writing this book, and it would be, the most polished, wonderful masterpiece in the world when you turned it in and somebody bought it. And then they would say, that's great. We need your next book in 8 weeks.
Oh.
And if you didn't know how to do that, and because everything was contractual and everything came with a deadline, and some people, that just wasn't for them. And I think some other people, there was a lot of volatility. There's always volatility in publishing. But even then, we were starting to see the combining of, lots of houses into bigger ones. And people would lose their editor, or their new editor would hate their work, or their old editor would say, like, this whole situation is not for me. There was a lot of course, take a pseudonym, write a different genre. They had a lot more control over your career then than you do now. And so I think for some people that just wasn't a situation for them. And of course, kids happen, finances happen, careers happen. There were so many different scenarios as to why people got out. But just, slowly over the years, we've all, because I see particularly Lara and Julie, I actually spend quite a bit of time with them. And, we kind of comment regularly that it's kind of odd to look around and not see so many of those people that we used to see.
So can you talk a bit how the publishing world has changed, maybe in relation to you, because now they're self-publishing, so it's kind of like an open area for anyone can do anything, basically.
It is. Publishing, when I started, was, of course, very structured, and your publisher was your gatekeeper, and if you were deemed not good enough by publishers, then nobody was going to hear your voice. So that was probably the downside of traditional publishing. It was very much about scheduling, and they had total control over your packaging and your pricing, even your word length. I remember working with an editor once, and I was very accustomed to being allowed to just spread out and tell the story that I needed to at whatever word length that was, because I had such a great relationship with one of my editors. So that when I started working with another editor, and she was like, that's great, you gave me 115,000 words and I need this down to 99. And I was like, A, why? And B, it might have been nice to know that up front.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whereas today, I would just tell that story at 115,000 words, and that's what it would be, because that's what I thought it needed. So from that perspective, there was that downside. I would say the continuing difficulty with traditional publishing from the creative aspect is, yes, there's still deadlines. And it is weird to write a book and turn it in and know that you've gone through this process and nobody else is going to go through this journey with you for like another 9 to 12 months. So you can't talk about it. There's nothing to say. And you'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have finished this book. And people look at you and go, yay, I'm glad you finished. Like, they don't know what to say because they don't know what the book's about, Yeah. So that part is really hard versus self-publishing, where, your longer windows are something like 3 to 4 months at most. And that's if you're trying to do your audio at the same time. So I feel like the freedom is so fantastic with self-publishing. You can control your pricing, and you can put things on sale and change your covers at will. If somebody writes you, that used to be the frustrating thing about traditional publishing, when somebody would write you after the book was out and say, I found a typo on page, 402 or whatever. And I would be like, I unfortunately am totally disallowed from doing anything about this. And typos happen. You don't want them to, even though I've read it. 3 people on my team have read it. The publisher has read it. They sent a proofreader read it. Like, we're still all human, and stuff happens. Not often, thank God. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas now with self-publishing, I could just go fix that and reload it if I really wanted to, which I often do. But I feel as if the downside is I've talked to some of my friends who started in self-publishing, and one in particular said to me, I went in, with my rose-colored glasses thinking it was the best place ever. And she said, and it is in a lot of ways, but on the other hand, it is the Wild West, and it is kind of everybody, doing a mad dash to get books out every 5 minutes, which she says is really, really daunting. And she said, and I realize, 4 or 5 years later that I essentially learned how to write in public. And that's really, really like, now I wish that I had gone through the time like you used to back in the days of traditional publishing, really, really honing your craft and learning how to, write and structure plot and create character arcs and do all of those very crafty things. She goes, I wish I had done that privately instead of putting a book out there. She goes, because, there is that first impression factor.
Oh, yeah.
If your first book comes out and it's just not all the stellar things, then people are like, and I won't be reading her anymore, without understanding. Even 20 years later, we all continue to grow as writers.
Yeah. So do you think the freedom of self-publishing is what drew you to it and why you started self-publishing? Or?
Well, I originally started because, like a lot of, people who have been around for a while, my very first historical contracts with Kensington all had a 7-year clause. So at the end of 7 years, they don't do those anymore.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but I got them back after 7 years. I sat on them for a while, and then self-publishing started to roll around, and I was like, well, they're sitting on my hard drive. And I would get the occasional requests, even though I had made a pseudonym change, because I found it when I used my Shelley Bradley name, people would be like, but where's more historicals? And it was just like a constant battle, people thinking I was going to write more historicals. So I did a pseudonym change. And so now Shayla Black is much more synonymous with, steamy contemporaries, which is great. I had these historicals though, and I was like, they're just sitting here doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me, actually Sylvia Day said to me, why don't you just put a cover on them? They're already edited, and put them out, and at least you can stop the questions from people saying, I can't get this book anymore, or I now have a new Kindle, could I download it? You know what I'm saying? So it was really at first just about serving that customer base of people who were looking to have e-versions of these older books, or were missing one from their collection or whatever. And then I realized as they were out there that, I could start doing forward fiction, for myself. And so I've slowly kind of been meandering my way in that direction. And now I actually do quite a few series self-publishing and still maintain my relationship with Berkeley.
That's great. A hybrid author.
Yeah. I am. And I have been for a long time.
Is that what you want to be forever, basically?
I think it's the kind of thing where I'm enjoying where I'm at right now. I think, though, it's always the kind of thing where you have to look up and ask yourself, where is publishing? Where is the market? Where is the future? I don't think anybody can say anything is forever, because nothing in publishing is ever forever.
We don't know what's going to happen in 10 years.
Always changing, always growing. Yeah.
Always.
You kind of always have a bunch of different projects going on. What does a typical day look like for you? Or is there no typical day?
There is no typical day. I'd like to say that there is, but I work, after spending 20 years in corporate America, I work very much in a corporate team kind of environment. It's the way I like to run my show. So I basically have 3 people who work with me, and we all play to our strengths, which is great. And it gives me time to actually write. I think it's very difficult to be creative one moment and then look at your Google Analytics in the next moment and then turn around and say, now I'm going to write some scintillating back cover copy. And then 3 minutes later, I should fill out this spreadsheet and add up my sales and see whether I'm operating in the black this month. I mean, it's not that it's impossible. And I know plenty of people do it. I just find for me creatively, it's better for me not to delve into those, more analytical activities until I get a break. But sometimes that break doesn't happen often enough to actually do things like accounting or, paying attention to the world around you, as it were. So I have just found that it's much easier to operate in a team environment. Yeah, so it frees me up to do the things that I do that they can't do, and vice versa.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess as a self-published author, you kind of wear a bunch of different hats. Do you consider yourself to be naturally business savvy, or how do you balance, like you said, the creative and working on the business and marketing and the social aspects as well?
My team, we've now been together for the most part for about, my newest member is really kind of came to us about 3 years ago. my right hand, Rachel, has been with me, I want to say it's like 5 years now. It's just been crazy. And of course I have my husband who's, like my other, like he's with me, we're together 24/7, which is an interesting dynamic in itself, but they're very protective of me and my writing time. So there are times where I can hear them on the phone talking about, something like, the social media schedule or an ad someplace, or, how are we going to get this book uploaded, or whatever's going on out in the wild world of publishing. And I'll walk in and try to participate, and they'll be like, nope, it's your writing time, go write. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I wanted to be in the conversation. And they're like, nope, it's your time to write, go write. So they're like, if there's something you need to know, we will absolutely tell you. Other than that, let us do us and you do you, and we'll circle back at the end and it'll all be fine. And it is. I just get nosy sometimes.
I mean, you should.
Yeah,
I should. I do. But they do a great job of keeping me posted. If something is super important, they do.
I think you have a very strong presence on social media, like such as Facebook, and then you have Wine Wednesdays, Book Beauties. How did you decide? I don't think you do like all the platforms, but I think you focus on one, such as Facebook. So how did you decide which social media platforms worked with you, and then how do you keep up with them?
I'm actually on just about every platform, but I focus more on Facebook just because I'm the person who's interactive. Twitter and I don't get along. When I had to be restricted to 140 characters or whatever it was, like that just didn't work for me. I mean, I can't say good morning in 10,000 words. My brain doesn't work that way. So, and I found that I preferred an interaction where I could be more meaningful with people and actually create relationships than to drop in some like pithy cocktail party style conversation or, little barbs. That's not me either. I like to relationship build. And I feel like my relationship with readers is very individual. I talk to you, you talk to me. I have different relationships with a lot of my book beauties. And, we talk about all kinds of things. I have some that I like to talk about makeup, and I have some that we like to just talk about books. And then others, we talk about weather and baking, and there's all kinds of things. It's like having, neighbors or friends, or you don't have the same conversation with different people in your life. And I feel that way about readers also. And I just find that Facebook lends itself better. I have a Pinterest presence, and I have a YouTube presence, and we do all the things. But I think I focus there because I like to think that I'm talking to you and not at you.
Is that why you decided to do Wine Wednesdays? Because you're interacting with people, they're asking you questions. Is that something that you thought of that you wanted to do, or did someone come up with the idea for you?
Well, so what happened was I had a reader who started this chat group for me. And she was like, you can participate or not, but some friends and I want to get together and chat about your books. And at first she was like, it'd be great if you could drop in every once in a while. I'm like, okay. But as what happens with a lot of things, people have conversation for a while and then either get busy or move on or, whatever. And she kept saying to me, and I would drop in every once in a while, but I didn't want to stomp on her playground. And so I was always kind of gingerly tiptoeing in and saying hi. And then I would back out and be like, and, I don't want you to feel like you can't have conversation, good or bad, about something I've written if you feel like I'm hovering, because that's weird. So she finally said to me, it would be great if you could be here more. And then she actually came to a point in life where she was like, I don't know if you know this, but I'm actually going to write my own books now.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, do it, you do it. And so she was like, do you want me to kill the group or do you want to take it? And I said, you know what, I'm going to take it. And we'll have some fun with it. So at that point, I said to Rachel, and then my other assistant, Shannon, came in a little bit later, and I said, we have this chat group, and at the time there was, 700 or 800 people in there. We're like, what do we want to do with this? So we had some brainstorming, and then I kept saying, but I want to talk to people. I don't want to blog about things. I don't want to write articles. It's talking at them and not to them. And I'm super extroverted and I'm really comfortable in front of a camera. So I'm a ham, what can I say? And so we decided, and who doesn't like, Wine on a Wednesday? So we just decided that we were going to start, trying to do a live video every week and see how people respond to that. And it's grown and grown and grown. And in the last, I want to say year and a half, we've grown that group from, like I said, about 700, 800 maybe people, and we're closing in on 4,300 now. So I don't advertise it. I don't, it's all pretty much word of mouth. And it's been really nice to just have new people come in and join us and have lots of fun.
It's really fun. I was watching the videos. I'm like, you guys are great. You should have a show.
Well, it's so funny. Everybody's like, do you script this? We could not possibly script any of this. Like last night we were talking and I'm saying something that I think is important and meaningful about my latest release. And then I have a male and a female cat, and my female comes brushing up. And when I'm not paying attention to her, she digs her claws into my leg. And so like mid-sentence, I'm saying something that's kind of choking me up. And all of a sudden I'm like, because that didn't feel so good. I couldn't script this if I tried.
Do you find it's hard to balance book information and then also like your outside interest in your social media platforms? Or do you just not care?
So social media for me is that thing that we kind of sit around and collectively talk about a lot, because I want to be fun and engaging, and nobody wants to have sales stuff dumped on them like 24/7. It would bore even me. Mm-hmm. So, we sit around and try to figure out what's the right balance, what's interesting, and still make it seem like me and not like buy a book. So it is kind of a collaborative effort in that way. And we all come up with good ideas. And I kind of prefer the process that way. I do spontaneously post sometime if I'm out somewhere doing something fun, but most of the time, let's face it, we're in our house working. And so you can only take so many pictures of your cat sitting in the sun while you're typing something. And then people are like, it's your cat again. That's great.
I need something new.
Yes, exactly.
So this is basically just a me question.
Okay, do it.
We're just beauty YouTubers. Have you ever thought about making your own channel? Because you kind of already have a platform and you could just do it for YouTube full time.
I have thought about it a lot, and it would be fun. It would be something that I would dig doing. And who wouldn't love some of the PR they get is amazing. Yeah. Like that would be like a dream. I think part of it for me is I need to get to a couple of things where, first of all, I have such a tight schedule this year. It can't interfere with my schedule. I would strictly be doing it for the love of it. I don't have any aspirations of, I know there's a lot of YouTubers who have made quite a name for themselves and done beauty collaborations and made a lot of money and, started their own companies. Like I don't have any aspirations of any of that. It's strictly the love of beauty products, skincare, makeup. Like I just enjoy all those good female things. Mm-hmm. I feel like the other thing is I need some dedicated space to do it. So basically we're just waiting for my daughter to go off to college next year.
At a video room. Yeah,
exactly. So she'll go off and we'll be like, bye.
Thanks, girl, for coming.
That's right. Come back every once in a while. We'll have a bed for you. It's fine.
If anyone's listening and they need beauty recommendations, you should watch Shayla's Wine Wednesdays. I can say that it's very genuine rather than a YouTuber. And I can tell you actually like the stuff.
Well, and it's funny because I like some of the ideas for like thematic ideas for a beauty segment that they will come up with. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of times where I'm like, I've tried that product, girl. That product sucks. Like, that.
Yeah.
Why are you telling me this is all the awesome things when we all know this is not true?
Some good ones, I will say. There's some good ones.
No, there's some great ones. But there are some where I'm like, once you burn me, I'm just like, I don't know how much I trust. Now, one of the YouTubers I love is probably not really well known. Her name is Sabrina, but she has oily skin and she lives in Florida. So like she has completely different skin needs than I do. So when something really works for her, I genuinely believe it works for her skin, but that's not my skin. And I understand. And skin tone, and she's a redhead with, pretty blue eyes. Like it's a totally different thing. Mm-hmm. I have super dark hair. I'm basically Snow White. Like I have that really, really pale skin that looks like, I think my neighbors think I'm a vampire. Yeah.
We both have the pale skin.
Where you're like, and I can't buy some sun here because I will turn into a big giant freckle. Yay.
Yeah, Canada doesn't really help with the sun in the winter.
I live in Dallas. We have tons of sun, but if I go out in it, then I'm just sunburned in like 10 minutes.
That's not.
So your husband joins you for Wine Wednesday videos, but he also helps with your writing. So how did your husband and sometimes your daughter get involved with your writing business?
Well, I guess it was, it's about 9 years ago now. No, I take that back. About 7 years ago. He was in a really, really stressful executive job, and he was traveling more than we both wanted, and he was working crazy, ridiculous hours. And, I finally said to him, you should just come home and help me. I'm drowning. Because at that point, I really was doing everything pretty much alone. I had another assistant, and she lived in Washington State, and her husband had ocular disease, and he was slowly going blind. So the amount of work that she could do for me began to diminish, and I knew I was going to need to replace her because she was telling me, I need to spend more time over here. And I'm like, absolutely, you have to do what you have to do. Mm-hmm. So I said to him, like, I really, really need help, and I don't know anybody else, and you need to get out of this stress factory. And it took about 6 months of negotiating. And I finally built him a spreadsheet, and I put it down in front of him, and I said, you're costing me money to go to work. And he was like, okay, then. So he left his job. It was right around Thanksgiving, and it took about 6 months for him to really kind of catch up and feel like he had his feet under him, because it's just a completely different business. And he just picked up running, and he's amazing now. I give him things and he handles it. Plus he still handles everything around the house. We're having trees trimmed because it's that time of the year, and he's working on the property taxes because it's getting to be that time of year. Like, he handles all the things. It's literally, I write, which has just been the most wonderful thing. My daughter was 11 months old when I sold my first book. So this is really all she's ever known. And she's always been interested and curious. And she now helps. She's a great little proofreader. For anybody who's asking, she's actually 21. So it's not like I'm, having my very young daughter reading really sexy books. She is 21 currently. But she will help do whatever needs to be done. She helps keep the book inventory. She helps put together swag packs. Like I said, she's a great little proofreader. So it's kind of whatever needs to be done. She'll help pack boxes, and whatever needs to get done, they just all chip in and we do it.
Yeah, that's awesome to have that support system at home.
Oh, I am so, so fortunate. I know other authors who are like, well, once my husband walks in the door, if I'm not sitting next to him on the couch paying complete attention to him, he gets really mad. And my husband is like, you have a deadline, go take care of that. That's more important. I'll still be here. And I'm like, you're awesome.
And how do you find that kind of like family work balance? Is it ever difficult working with your husband so much?
The only thing that's odd, like, we went out, we just had our 27th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I know it seems weird, like, oh, we've been married that long, now we sound really old, damn. But it was on September 7th, and so we are in the middle of building a new website right now, and it ended up being a day, we were like, we're going to take this day for ourselves, and it ended up being a day full of phone calls with the web developer and preparing for the launch of More Than Crave, which just came out. And there were some other things, business-wise happening. And so we ended up finally on our wedding anniversary at 9:00 at night at Chick-fil-A with my daughter. And we're like, happy anniversary. Like, it happens, right? Yeah. So it took us until Monday to get out from underneath everything. And we went out for dinner. And so we're having this weird blend of conversation, like he's having a beer and I'm having a glass of wine, and we're waiting for our food. And we're having this like weird conversation where we're talking about, how long we've been married and some of the things over the years, and, our daughter and whatever. And then the next thing he'll be like, oh, but, Rachel just sent me a calendar invite for this or that. And okay, yeah, I'll add that to my calendar too. Like, it's a back and forth sort of ping pong conversation. We kind of morph from one to the other to the point where it is, I think, just the family new norm. And I know some people do these very serious, like, partitioning of business and personal. My brain doesn't work that way, and I don't think his does either. So for us, it's cool. And then there are times like this morning we got up and like, we're just going to go, we grabbed one of my neighbors that I'm close with, and she watches my cats when we're gone. And we're like, let's just go out to breakfast. Heck, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. Let's just go out and see some sunshine, and why not?
That sounds nice.
Yeah, that's great.
So you have over 20 years of backlist titles. Do you find that you go back and like upload a new cover or like redesign stuff to like revive your old backlist for new readers?
Yeah, we do, but it's always for weird reasons.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's that we do refresh the back matter contents every so often. And then sometimes what will happen is when we go to re-upload the cover, they'll say like, oh, the size of this is slightly changed.
Oh.
and you can't use this cover anymore. But I didn't design that cover. And Rachel, who designs most of my covers now, didn't design that cover either. So it forces us to go back and say, okay, well, this probably could have used a cover refresh anyway. I do have, if, for instance, we're just about to launch a new cover for a couple of titles, and one of them is an old backlist title of mine called Dangerous Boys and Their Toy. It was originally an Dolores K book, and then I had a designer over in Germany make me a cover, which was a beautiful cover, but I think the color tones of it made it look like it was a paranormal, and I got some feedback that it's kind of in blues and it's a little like moody and spooky and whatever. And this is a book set in the Arizona desert. So we decided to recover it and kind of run with that whole, rugged desert theme. And so we're going to be relaunching that. So I'm also recovering a book that just came out earlier this year. Lord, my months are running together, called The Choice, that I write with Jenna Jacob and Isabella LaPearl. And we are recovering that because I literally just found a color that was bigger and brighter and I liked it better.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's a grand reason to recover, but it was like, it's so pretty.
I mean, why not? You're going to love that cover.
Yeah, exactly. And we actually, that particular series is serialized. So we already know what the next two covers in that series will look like. And so we did them all at once so that they could all be corresponding and kind of coordinating, if you will, from a theme and color perspective. So now it's all going to tie together and it'll look cohesive.
That will be nice.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips for anyone trying to promote maybe their first book or their republished book from 20 years ago? Do you have any tips for authors?
I think you just have to, and this is true of everything I think you do, you just have to be you. And if that means that you take out a cover because you feel like the message of the book has changed or you never liked that cover, you should feel that you have the freedom to promote that book in a way that best represents not just the book, but who you are and what that book meant to you when you wrote it. I always feel like that gets lost a little bit in the shuffle. People are always trying to hit the best trope and the coolest image and the best color. I know it's important, but there's a part of me that feels like sometimes the best thing to do is just be as genuine as you can. So if you find an image or a color or a font or whatever and you're feeling it, do it, do you. Because, everyone has an opinion, but nobody else can be you. And I feel like what people are, consuming when they sit down to read one of your books in a way is you. It's the way you think, it's the way you view the world, it's the way you view relationships. So if the cover isn't an accurate representation of you, then I almost think you can lead to those things where you've seen those books where you're like, well, the cover said this, but the contents were totally like that. Mm-hmm. And they didn't go together. And I feel like I said, you just have to be you.
Yeah, for sure. Are there any mistakes you've made along the way or any advice you wish you heard when you first started out in self-publishing?
I think by the time I started self-publishing, I knew enough about the publishing business that I wasn't surprised by very much. I kind of have heard some horror stories from people who didn't start out traditionally and haven't been around quite as long, who were just completely bowled over by some of the ways the business worked and gaining a readership worked. And like you said earlier, all the things you have to do, the covers, the social media, and I think for a lot of people, it is a lot of pressure. And if you're not used to juggling so many things, for some people, I think it becomes overwhelming. And I think for me, like I said, because I knew a lot about publishing already, it wasn't quite a shock. There were some things, of course, that were vastly different, but there were things that I was actually looking forward to. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't challenging. I think I would just tell people it is different, and it's like any other experience. It's what you make of it. So if you want to press hard, be all in and go 100 miles an hour, and if that suits you, do it. And if that's not you, don't feel compelled to look around and say, but Mary Sue over here is putting out 10 books a year and I can't compete. Don't try. Quality over quantity.
I think that's good advice.
Yeah, for sure. What have you been loving lately? So this could be books or anything outside of publishing.
I'm going to be the crazy one who says, because that's a surprise that I'm crazy. I'm going to be the crazy one who says, my downtime, I love my YouTube videos. I love my beauty gurus. I do. but I will probably be the only author you ever talk to who says, so I write incredibly, sexy romantic books and I like makeup, but I also like video gaming.
Oh, that's so cool.
I feel like if I tried a video game, I would love it a lot because it's a story.
It is a story, and a lot of the RPGs, the role-playing games, are really, again, what you make of it. So you can avoid the story altogether. You can just go explore a world. You can create a character that's the way you want it. Like some of the games now have these great little things you can do on the side. So if you want to build a house or craft some stuff, or my daughter likes to play with me sometimes, but she's not really a combat kind of person. She just wants to do all the cute little side stuff. Yeah. So she'll go around and stockpile herbs and, go through some building where I've gone in and slaughtered everybody. And she'll be like, I'm going to pick up all the things off the dead bodies. And you do it.
Jewels.
Yes, exactly. She's like, can I go craft some jewelry and sell it to the vendor down the street? And I'm like, you can do that.
That seems fun to me.
Yeah.
What are some games we should try if we have never played a video game before?
If you've never played a game. So I found, because I like the worlds where you can go exploring. You can do the storyline if you want or not. So if you like I'm back on a Skyrim kick right now. This is a really old game from Bethesda. It came out in 2011. They remastered it for PS4 a couple of years ago and included all of the downloadable side quests, if you will, that came with it over time. I find Skyrim is a game that I can play over and over and over again just because every time you play it, there's something different. There's so many radiant quests that will send you to places you've never been on this giant map. Every cave, you walk in there and you're thinking, oh, it's a cave with 2 bears that I have to kill. And then you fall down a water hole. And the next thing you know, you're in some Draugr dungeon with all of these ancient Nord skeletons and you have to fight them. And at the end, you'll have some amazing, crown of radiance where you'll be invisible for a year. It's just crazy. It's it's like treasure questing in a way.
Sign me up for that.
Yeah, we're taking notes right now.
Sounds great.
We're gonna have to get some tips.
And then if you want a more cerebral game, there was a game that came out earlier this year called Detroit Become Human. There's very, very little combat. What it is, it's a series of choices. And you have a couple of different main characters that you bounce around and they're telling a greater story of the human world becoming aware of androids feeling feelings and wanting to have, equal rights kind of thing. And the series of choices that you make as different androids to try to gain that recognition and get people to take you seriously. It's a very thought-provoking, compelling game. And the choices you make will either give you a great outcome or a terrible one, and you have no idea what that is in advance. So it's replayable too.
I'm missing a part of my life that I should have.
Yeah.
There's also another game, I'll tell you this last one. It's a lot more difficult and it's a lot more combat, but the story of this game is amazing. It's a game called The Last of Us, and it's from Naughty Dog Studios. And it's more of a dystopian game, but ultimately at the core of that is a relationship game about these two people who weirdly find themselves in this post-apocalyptic world, if you will. And they forge this very odd, they're not actually related, but they forge this very odd father-daughter relationship. And if you can get through the first 10 minutes of this game without being shocked and crying, then I don't even know.
Surprisingly emotional then.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Because the progression of their relationship into this, like I said, very father-daughter relationship, it's slow and real and touching. It's really one of my favorite games.
Do you find you use video games to help with writer's block? Be like, I'm just going to go somewhere else in another world for a bit.
It's almost like, people say to me, do you read a lot in your downtime? And I used to, but what I find is it's very hard to turn my editorial brain off. And so when I'm reading, whether I'm conscious of it or not, even if there's nothing wrong with what I'm reading, I just find my brain going, oh, okay, it's words, so I'm supposed to edit.
Oh, no.
And I find myself not relaxing. It's like working in bed. So I can't just tune out enough to watch TV or get into a movie because it's too passive. I don't have to do anything. And it's too easy to get up and go someplace else and do something else. So my husband has always been a gamer. So he started me on some games and he was like, here, this will keep you thinking about something else, but you'll be so involved that you can't just get up and walk away. And that's really what it's been. I can just sort of divorce from what I've spent all day doing. So this is frequently something I'm doing late at night, and I can just stop thinking about every, the scene I can't finish, or the fact that I'm behind, or whatever it is that's freaking me out. Like I don't know what this hero wants to do. And then I can, go spend some time in Skyrim land or whatever. And the next day I'm just a new person.
Everyone should try that.
Yeah.
And can you just tell us a bit about your latest release?
More Than Crave You is the most interesting book, I think, for me to have written, because on the surface, it looks like a office romance, marriage of convenience, interracial romance. But for me, deep down, it was about this man that I feel, if you had met him in person, he's almost slightly on the spectrum. He really does everything so emotionally, or so logically. He doesn't even know how to be emotional. He's got an engineering brain. He didn't grow up in a household with emotion. So for him, it's really him trying to logically think his way through a very emotional process, and finally learning that you really can't. And you get this, because it's first person largely from his point of view, you get this entire like bird's eye view of what it's like to learn how to fall in love when you didn't even know that love was a thing.
As we read a lot of romance, we're like, I haven't read this one before. It's
very different because he is so, I won't say closed. He's not damaged. He's not broken. He is a widower, and that comes into play, but it's not an emotional thing. He literally is looking around his life going, it's empty and I live alone. And that's never been a bad thing. But now my life doesn't function in a way that is understandable or familiar to me. And so he's like, I need to change this situation, because I could hire like a cook and a maid and and a prostitute and whatever, but why hire 5 people when I can just hire one? I can just go hire a wife. So he immediately comes up. Yeah. It's logical, right?
Yeah.
It's not emotional. It's completely logical. So he says to his assistant, the opening of the book is he has written what he thinks is a perfectly viable want ad. And he says, basically who he is and what he's after. And it ends with, sense of humor optional, no romance, no children, must be willing to relocate to Hawaii. And she looks at him and she's like, are you out of your mind? And he proceeds to tell her all the reasons that he thinks this is completely logical. And on the surface, it really is. But normal people don't work that way. Evan just isn't normal.
He's special.
He's very special. And so it's fun to see her try to, like, at one point she takes him ballroom dancing and he's like, really? She's like, we're going to rumba. And he's like, I know what a rhomboid is. I know what a rumpus is. She's like, I don't know what a rumba is. And she's like, it's the dance of love. And he's like, oh, dear Lord.
That sounds great.
Yeah, adding it to
it's
it.
Actually, I had a lot of fun with it. And I felt really, I liked in some ways that it was a book for me to say, everyone deserves love. It's an interracial book and it's not an issue book. I don't want to mislead anybody to think that we're going to talk a lot about the difficulties they face as an interracial couple, because that's not it. And it was interesting because I had somebody say to me, Evan didn't really ever talk in his point of view about the fact that she's African-American. And like, because he didn't notice and it wasn't important to him.
Yeah.
What was important to him was the way she talked to him and treated him and helped him to understand, to filter his life as it is now and not the way he seems to somewhere in his logical brain thinks it needs to be. And the other thing that was important to me was to be able to say, he might be different and special, but he deserves love too. Everybody, no matter who you are, deserves to find that awesome person for them, even if they're a little bit difficult to understand.
We'll have a link to your book on the blog post. So our final question is, where can people find you online?
Of course, ShaylaBlack.com, new website forthcoming, like hopefully in the next 2 weeks, or I'm going to go drive out to California and kill my web developer personally. You heard it here first.
They heard it. They got an email being like, she's not ready. She's mad.
I'm about over it.
We'll be your
Of course, I'm on Facebook. I have a profile, but I'm maxed out on friends. I have a page, which is Shayla Black /Shelley Bradley. And then I have these Shayla Black Book Beauties. So if you would like to join Wine Wednesdays, that is where you can find us every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. And of course, like I said, I have a Twitter profile. I have a Pinterest. I have a YouTube. I have a Google Plus. I don't know. I have all the things. I have a Book Plus main. I have a BookBub, like an Amazon follow, all those good things. And you can, and of course I have a newsletter also. You can find them all from my website. So if you just go to shaylablack.com, you can find all the things.
All right. We'll have links to everything we've talked about in this episode. So if anyone wants to check you out.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
It was great talking to you.
Oh, it was so much fun. I appreciate it very much. You guys have a great one.
So we hope you enjoyed our interview with Shayla. And as always, the show notes to everything we talked about in the episode will be on the Kobo Writing Life blog.
You can also follow us on social media. We're on Twitter and Facebook at Kobo Writing Life and on Instagram at kobo.writing.life.
So thank you so much for listening. And until next time, bye guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Kobo Writing Life podcast, where we provide insights and stories from leaders and experimenters in the world of self-publishing.
If you want even more information about growing your Kobo sales, check out our blog or find us on social.
And if you're just finding us and ready to start your self-publishing journey today, sign up for free at kobo.com/writinglife. Until next time, happy writing!